I am being so serious right now when I tell you that the best live-action Batman we have ever had is Adam West's. Even over 50 years later, he is still the best live-action Batman ever, and nobody can tell me otherwise. Nobody can tell me otherwise. And here's why. We're not talking in terms of aesthetics. We're not talking in terms of, like, appearance or how the show is set up. No. It comes down to two things. Relationship with Robin and his philosophy for crime fighting. Now, I feel like for Robin, it is kind of like he has an unfair advantage because literally aside from the Schumacher universe, there's no other live-action Batman with a Robin for whatever reason, right? Ben Affleck's doesn't fucking count. He's not in any of the movies. He was dead before the movies start. He doesn't count, okay? Sorry. Ben Affleck's Robin doesn't count. It doesn't count if we never see the child. We only see a dead suit child. We see dead suit. We see suit. Ruined. Dead child. No child. Doesn't count. Nope. Doesn't count. Sorry. No. But the relationship between Robin and his philosophies, that is what I think makes him the best live-action Batman. And I don't say that to be like, well, I guess rage baiting is really funny. I don't say that to be quirky or different. I genuinely believe this. And what I mean is that Adam West's Batman is his belief that he can give people second chances and that they can turn their life around is so strong. He never wavers in this belief once, right? Even when villains literally almost kill him and his, child he has strung along, he never wavers in this belief that he can help them. That through the systems of government and through systems that he has in place, that people can get second chances and turn their life around if they take the help. Right? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And that's his whole philosophy. He's trying to give people every opportunity to change. He doesn't want them to stay criminals. He doesn't want to fight them. He wants to give them a better life, right? And I think one of the best examples is there was an episode where him and Catwoman are talking, right? And Catwoman is like, we would be so happy together. And he almost considers it. He considers it for a hot moment. Was I screaming and crying into my pillow being like, that should have been me? Sure. But he does consider it for a moment. Like, he's like, she could turn over and leave. This would be good for her, right? But then he immediately asks her, hey, what about Robin? And she says, oh, I'd have him killed. And then he immediately snaps out of this, right? He has hope so deeply. He hopes that this woman will turn her life around, that she will become a good person, but then she slips back into the villain thing. And while he's disappointed and he's upset and he declines her offer, obviously, he still holds out hope, right? And I don't mean just hope in a romantic sense, like hope that she can turn her life around and that she won't continue to just be a villain and stealing stuff, right? And that sort of never changing moral and that good belief in people is what makes Batman different from just a street justice vigilante person. This belief that you're not going to just take people down and incarcerate them and just leave them to rot, but instead hope to turn their life around, to give them opportunities to become something bigger than themselves, bigger than just a street criminal, right? And that's not something every Batman adaptation, at least live action, has done. You know, if we're going to talk Ben Affleck, which Ben Affleck is literally low-hanging fruit. It is so easy to look at his and say bad because it is quite literally, I think, the worst Batman adaptation we have ever had in live action. I have never seen a Batman live action that was so botched. Anyways, with his Batman, he literally says in Batman v Superman that criminals are weeds. Weeds that need to be plucked out. As in saying he needs to take them out. He needs to kill them. Adam West Batman would never kill. I mean, Batman's not supposed to kill. He's not even supposed to use a gun, right? But Adam West Batman would never even consider harming somebody. He doesn't want to harm them, right? And I think another important thing is that he believes so deeply that, people are smart, that people can change and improve, right? I think a really funny, thing that was going around recently because it was terribly ironic is there's an episode where the Penguin runs for mayor, right? And Robin's like, how can he run for mayor? He's a felon. Why is a felon running? And Adam West Batman explains that, hey, people of Gotham are smart. They're going to understand that we shouldn't vote for a criminal. That just because he can run doesn't necessarily mean he would be a good option. He believes that people of Gotham City would be able to, decide their fate the right way. That the people of Gotham are smart enough, right? This belief that people can like change and grow and that they're able to recognize bad is super important, right? That's his whole thing. He is so devoted to this. And I think another thing as well that makes him so good is his acting, right? Adam West's Batman has a very specific way that he talks. It is stoic, it is put together, he's eloquently spoken. He never once falters in this belief, and he never once stutters on it either, right? Even in moments of peril, he is still quite literally info dumping, right? Him and Robin can be in the middle of a fight, and he will be explaining to Robin, like, fucking, I don't even know how to explain it, but like it would be like, let's say that they're fighting King Tut, and he would be like, Robin, look at those hieroglyphics, that means cow. And I don't know, I think that's really funny. There's like a charm to Adam West Batman, and not just because it's like a comedy from the 60s and so it's very camp, but in the sense that like, I think we're so used to modern day interpretations of Batman, we kind of forget that Batman isn't supposed to be that incredibly scary. Batman's supposed to be intimidating, sure, but he's also supposed to be Gotham's beacon of hope, right? He's supposed to be Gotham's Superman. Gotham's Superman is Batman, and unlike Superman, who, you know, is super chill, super awesome, and like a beacon of hope in the traditional sense, Gotham is grittier. Gotham is different, and he has to be a different type of hope, right? Instead of just the hope in like humanity, he's the hope in reformation, in second chances, in rebuilding, right? And that's super important. I think a lot of people don't quite understand how important that is to Batman, because without that, he is quite literally just every other street justice criminal. And that's the hard truth, right? But on top of that, on top of, you know, his beliefs, he never falters, it's his relationship with Robin, right? I think that is also really important. Remember, Robin was introduced a year after Batman was, right? He is so important to Batman. Like, Batman was apparently, like, I can't remember the exact thing. I think it was, like, Batman was so boring, so they needed to give him a sidekick, so they gave him Robin, right? And, I mean, this is the 60s. This is before they retconned it, so he's technically Batman's son. Robin, Dick Grayson, at the time, was still his ward. And even as his ward, they had, like, the subtext. They didn't ever have to say it out loud. They didn't go, this is a father and this is a son. They are father and son. But it was said through the actions, through the writing, through the subtext. It's honestly amazing. I can't believe we live in a world where 50 plus years ago, one of the best examples of Batman actually caring about Robin comes from the fucking stupid, campy 66 adaptation. The 1966 TV show. Are we insane? Maybe we are. Maybe we lost the plot a long time ago because apparently we can't write peak anymore. Anyways, you know, him and Robin do everything together, right? He takes Robin to, like, okay, so there's this episode where they have to go, like, the original founding families of Gotham have to go to renew this thing that says people can, like, something about Gotham. I don't know. I have to rewatch the episode. It's Vincent Price is in it, and he plays Dr. Eggman or something. Anyways, Vincent Price, he gets, like, the deed for Gotham, and now he controls Gotham. Anyways, so, like, he takes, and it's really funny, actually, he takes he takes Robin with him on this excursion, right? And it's like, why would you, you know, he's, like, him and Robin are attached by the hip. It's almost ridiculous. It's like, why would you take this child here? But he's just like, no, he has to come, he has to learn. Because that's my child. What, he has to do this in a couple decades, I guess. Anyways, no, they do everything together. It's actually really cute. Some episodes are kind of matching, like they're wearing the same outfits but in different colors. He's helping him with his homework. They do sports together. They do chess together. They, like, do stargazing. They do all of these things together, right? He takes him to museums. He takes him to restaurants when they're not fighting crime, right? And then when they're fighting crime, Robin is attached by the hip. He doesn't let Robin go. Whenever Robin isn't with him, he freaks the fuck out. I think one of the best episodes is the first episode, actually. Robin gets kidnapped. So, for those of you who don't know how the show works, the show, you have the first half of the episode is one episode, and the second half is the second episode. So every episode is actually 2 episodes, because back in the day, they would air these, you know, and it would be like, are Robin and Batman going to survive? Tune in tomorrow to find out, you know? It's not as fun, with on demand, and I feel like it would be a lot more fun if you were in the 60s and you were experiencing that in real time, but sadly I'm not in the 60s. It is 2025. I do think what's crazy though is that my stepdad was conscious and living and got to watch this show air in real time, it feels so weird to know that. Anyways, that was a tangent. So, in the first episode, at the end of the first episode, Robin gets kidnapped by the Riddler, which I always found was really funny that for some reason the first villain of the TV show, like the pilot episode, they did the Riddler and not like the Joker. You think he would want to do the Joker because like the Joker is like Batman's number one enemy. Anyways, I guess you could argue that this is why him and the Riddler are like doomed yaoi. I guess I could make an argument about that. I definitely could. I could overreach, but that's a story for another fucking day. Anyways, so at the end of that episode, Robin gets kidnapped, and then in the next episode, Batman's at the Batcave, and he is like, Alfred calls him from upstairs, and he's like, hey, can you, like, come up here, because, like, you haven't slept in days, and, like, I don't think you've eaten a proper meal, and he's like, I cannot sleep until I find Robin. Like, I can't sleep until Dick Grayson is home, because he could never forgive himself. And that's really one of the few times as well they ever mention his parents, is he's like, I could never forgive myself if something happened to Robin like something happened to my parents. And I feel like, okay, so it was a camp show, like a silly show, so they didn't really ever go into depth about stuff like that, but it made me, like, so sad, and, like, not sad, but it's just like, wow, how did you get this so right before there was even, like, a plan? Because remember, this was the 60s. This was before Jason Todd. This was before Nightwing. Nightwing was not a thing yet, right? It was quite literally just Dick Grayson and Batman, right? And I think it's so interesting how they hit things that are still so relevant and important to how how Batman is written today, where he is so invested in his kids, and his kids come first, and he would take bullets for them, and he does take bullets for them, and he would die for them, and he would die for them die for Robin in the 66 show. And that is such an important dynamic. I don't think Batman is the same without somebody to care for, because this is something I talk about a lot to my friends, but Dick Grayson is quite literally so important to Bruce Wayne. Like, without Dick Grayson, we would not have a Batman that we would recognize, because before Dick Grayson, he was alone, right? He only had to take care of himself because Alfred took care of him. He lived alone. He didn't really have anybody. Like, it didn't really matter to him if he got hurt or whatever, because there was nobody to care for. But then this boy is, like, dropped into his lap, and he's like, damn, I have to take care of this thing. I have to, like, feed it and water it, you know? And suddenly it's like, holy shit, I have, like, I'm, like, a parent, and, like, he suddenly cares. He doesn't want to get hurt as much. He has to be there for somebody. He has to learn how to comfort, how to be a parent, how to take care of another. And in learning to take care of another, his motivation changes, right? It doesn't become just justice for his parents, like avenging his parents. It becomes building a new Gotham City for his son, right? It becomes, I want my child to end up living in a world that was better than when I was born into it, right? And I think that is such a beautiful thing, and I don't think enough people quite understand how important Dick Grayson is, especially, but all Robins in general are really important to Bruce Wayne. And, I mean, that's one thing I'm really excited about with James Gunn's new DC universe. Like, I hope that we really do get all of the Robins, because every single one of them in some way has an intense impact on Bruce Wayne's life and changes his motivations. But Dick Grayson is like the catalyst for all of that, because without Dick Grayson, why would he adopt kids, right? Like, why would he want to be a father if he didn't love it so much to begin with? If he didn't love the feeling of taking care of somebody, of loving and nurturing someone. There's a reason in the comics Batman says that Dick Grayson is, like, the best thing he ever did, because he's like Batman, but without, like, the intense trauma that makes you angsty, essentially. I mean, he does have intense trauma. We could talk about that another day. Dick Grayson has some of the worst trauma in the comic books, and the fact that we never really talk about it is kind of insane, but I feel like I wouldn't really be qualified. I feel like that's like an episode, that kind of YouTube video, I feel like I would have to bring on my best friend, whose number one thing is Nightwing, right? I couldn't do that alone. I need, like, a co-host or something, because that guy knows everything about Nightwing. I only ever know things about characters in proximity to Batman, because Batman is the special interest. He's the fixation, specifically Batman, not all Batman media, just Bruce Wayne himself. So I don't really care about other characters unless they have a relation to Batman. That is why I care so much about Robins and, like, Batman characters and characters like Superman or Wonder Woman because of how important they are to Batman. Anyways, that was a really long-winded tangent, but I felt like that was really important to talk about. Anyways, his relationship with Robin in the show was also really important. The only time I can recall that they were apart is at the beginning of an episode where I don't even remember the villain. I think it was the Riddler. The Riddler comes up so much in the 66 show. I loved the Riddler so much in the 66 show. Here's him, but he's pink. I got him for my birthday. I love him so much. I think at the Olive Garden dinner table, I was kicking my feet. I was stimming so hard. I was so happy to get this guy. Like, look at him. He's so... Anyways, I think that's the happiest I've ever appeared on camera. I'll fix him later. Anyways, so I think it was the Riddler who was after him. I don't know, like, causing crime. Anyways, the only episode where they were apart, Dick Grayson was on a field trip, and for some reason Bruce Wayne was on a hunting trip. Sometimes they sprinkle that he's, like, a part of a country club, which I guess is, like, just, like, a thing rich people did in the 60s. Or just old rich people in general still go to country clubs. But, like, whatever. I haven't been to a country club in years, and I don't really want to go to another country club. Anyways, I thought that was really funny that he was on a hunting trip for some reason. But anyways, they find out that, like, the Riddler's causing problems, and and he contacts Robin. He's like, hey, Dick, you're gonna hate this, but we have to cut our activities short. And it's like an overnight school field trip. I feel like I need to clarify that. Anyways, I find that so funny that the only time that they're apart is when they are both doing two separate activities that don't require the other person. But otherwise, the entire show, they are basically attached by the hip. And then in the movie, because yes, there is a movie that came out. I'm so glad you asked. Maybe I'll review it sometime because I really, really love that movie. It's just, the 66 Batman is specifically, my favorite adaptation of Batman. Like, that is, like, my favorite one ever. I could yap about it for hours and hours and hours. Actually, the other day in class, I showed some of my classmates a clip from the show, the one where he's talking to himself over the phone, and I was, like, laughing and, like, trying to act normal. I don't think they were that impressed by it, but to me, it's everything. Anyways, so the only other time they're not together is in the movie when he's on a date with Catwoman, but he doesn't realize it's Catwoman. Catwoman's in disguise as, like, a Russian reporter. I don't know why Russian, but she is Russian in this for some reason. Like, she has a Russian accent. Anyways, Alfred and Dick are, like, watching the date from the Batmobile, and he's really upset because he's like, what if, like, he ends up liking her? Like, this changes everything. And I think that's also really important because we've been talking a lot about Batman's relation to Robin, but also for Robin, it is really important that he has Batman, like, specifically Bruce Wayne. Because, well, I mean, we could talk about how Dick really needed somebody who could understand him and nurture him in a way that wouldn't make him out to be, like, a violent criminal or something, and not to be left behind in the system, especially because Dick Grayson is Romani, and there's no way in hell Gotham City doesn't have some level of systemic racism. Like, be so for real. Anyways, like, you know, like, Superman's number one enemy is basically just, like, an anti-immigrant billionaire. And this shit writes itself. Anyways, so, you know, Dick Grayson really needs Bruce Wayne, right? Like, the idea of the, like, that's actually kind of a big plot point, or I guess not big, but it is a plot point, that, Dick Grayson's scared that that date is going to go so well and that things will change for him and his life, because the entire show, him and Bruce Wayne are attached by the hip. You know, he always goes everywhere with his dad. He's always doing things with his dad. His life, you know, he spends so much time with his dad, which is, like, real only child privileges. As an only child, I can tell you right now that I am incredibly clingy to my dear old mother, and that is just kind of how only children work. And so I understand exactly where he's coming from, because, like, a step-parent does sound really scary. I do have a step-parent. No comment. No comment. But, you know, like, the idea that things don't change. He obviously doesn't get with Catwoman in the end. Catwoman and Batman never really get together in the show, but, like, in most adaptations that are, like, live action, they never really truly get together, which is fine for me, because then it keeps my hopes and dreams alive that maybe someday he'll pick me, you know? Like, I'm right here, born to be a rotating Batman love interest, forced to be a real person who has to go into debt for college. Anyways, no, but quite literally what I think makes Adam West such a perfect Batman is his relationship to Robin and his philosophy of how he deals with criminals, because he never once wants to hurt these criminals. Never once does he say, oh, we just need to lock them up and throw away the key. No, he's like, no, these are broken people. These are people who need help. And he sees that sort of help that they need, and he wants to give them that help. He believes in the reform so deeply that he can give them if they would only take it. And that's such a beautiful thing. And there's also a tragedy to that. Someone who believes so deeply that they can help people, but the people that they're trying to help will never get help, and they will only get worse. And he will continue the cycle of fighting them, putting them somewhere else, so that hopefully they'll accept the help that they need, like in Arkham. Because Arkham isn't hell in this adaptation, Arkham is just kind of a reform institute kind of place. But I think that's really interesting that it's a never-ending cycle and it'll never change, which is great for the TV show because it's things will always stay the same. There's no need to worry about change, which is great for me, but not great for Batman. That sucks, obviously. I mean, Batgirl does appear later in the show, but I don't know, that's not really important right now, because that is kind of the era where her and Dick Grayson weren't the same age, but she wasn't Batman's love interest either. She was just a third party who was here for the long haul. I think a lot of people were so used to Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon being around the same age and being love interests in the comics, which boo, boo. But I mean, when they first started, he was just some random kid, and she was just this random young woman, and they were just fighting crime together. That was a recenter retcon. Recenter also isn't a word, but it's a more recent retcon. But okay, so there is this one episode that I think is one of the most beautiful ways to sum up Batman and Robin's dynamic in the show. So they're about to be electrocuted on New Year's by this hillbilly criminal family, which is doesn't make any sense, but if you've seen the show, you know. Anyways, they took over Arkham and all of this, and it's ooh, that sucks. Anyways, they're about to be electrocuted, and he quite literally, I remember this so vividly, he was spare the child. Kill me, let Robin go. And I feel that is so important I mean, he says that several times throughout the show, but that was the first time that really stuck out to me, and that I remember so deeply to this day, right? The first time I saw it, I still so deeply remember it. And it's so important that he says something like that, because it's that kind of love that makes him different from just a street justice vigilante. Not just love and belief that people can change in second chances, but the love for Robin, for his own child. That is really important to Batman. That makes him different, because he's not just fighting because his parents died. That's not as, I don't know, at least to me, fighting just because your parents died is just not as impactful as fighting to make a better future for your own child. And I feel even though they never said that out loud, the subtext is there, and it's kind of awesome sauce. I wish more people talked about this show, because that is kind of an awesome subtext to have going on. Anyways, that's really it. I don't know if any of that made sense. I hope it made sense. I definitely will be talking about this show at some point soon. Again, recent, hopefully. I don't know, maybe I'll make a whole video dissecting why Adam West Batman is probably the hottest one. And also, I really need to clarify,